Good day and welcome to Rocket with Chief, conversations to take you places. Today I am lucky enough to have an old friend. Well, not that old. You're not that old, but a friend in the studio, Themba. Themba, thank you for joining us. All things HR, people related, and about changing lives. So we're going to dive into a couple of topics and we'll talk about basketball, mountain biking, food, family, and anything in between. But right now, I just want to say good morning. And where do we find you this morning, Themba?
Morning, Daniel. Good to be with you again. It's been too long. I think we ran into each other 2 weeks back, but before that, it had been like 3 years. So
Hey,
it's
man.
awesome to be
Yeah.
back in touch. This morning finds me at the office. So I've tried to unremote myself for the last year and a bit. So I try to pop in daily and speak to people who aren't related to me during my workday.
Okay.
So I'm in our offices here in Sandton. Sunny Joburg. Well, not so sunny today, right?
Yeah, you're in a different Joburg to me today. So at the time of recording, there's a layer of grey that reminds me of London, only prettier. So I hope Santon's doing well. You've just said unremote yourself, Themba. What does that mean? What is it that connection gives you?
So I think, we all look, I certainly enjoyed working from home when it was unforced during the pandemic. But what I missed, and maybe I shouldn't be admitting this on this call, but I missed driving in my car. I realized that during the pandemic, I listened to 60% less music than I did pre-pandemic. And that's because I used to listen to my music on the way to work and on the way back. Now it was sort of close your laptop and start with the afternoon stuff you do when you're at home, right? So I've tried to work a little bit more from the office. Also being in people management, and the people piece comes first. I try to make sure that I stay connected in a very real way to the people that who are my clients. Some of them come back. Some of them come into the office to fill their social cup. Some people come into the office. We have this wonderful phenomenon of load shedding, so they have electricity challenges. And myself and some of my team, we try to be the anchor tenants at the office. So when people come in, they see the people.
You work in high tech. Give us an elevator pitch for Themba and what do you do within these organizations?
So I'm the outlier, which is brilliant. So having spent the large part of my career, as you say, being in tech businesses, I'm 100% non-technical. Not smart enough to be an engineer, not patient enough for code. My data skills extend to maybe Excel and no further. Yeah. But where I've sort of found my niche and ply my trade is in the people side of those businesses, and in tech, and I think the same holds true for corporate at large. The misunderstood 20% that adds 80% of the value is the people side of those businesses, right? So you can get to grips with racks and routers or even cloud in a matter of days or months, quite quickly, and they're quite fixed. And once you understand them, you understand them. Once they behave, once you've coded them to behave a certain way, they do that all the time. The people, the wetware in an organization, the stuff that sits between people's ears, is a lot more malleable and a lot less predictable. So I've worked in organizations really focusing on that piece. I call it the final frontier in tech, which is the people.
And Themba, from an HR perspective, what is a commonly held belief around the HR role in tech, in consulting, that you passionately disagree with?
So you'll notice, and even from when we worked together, I've never had HR in my job title. I think the brand equity of the discipline is quite low for two reasons. A, it's misunderstood, but also it's gone through its own evolution, right? It's gone from being administrative and transactional to tactical and strategic. And for me, that's sort of the journey that I've always tried to infuse. We walk into an organization, and there's an expectation that the people function does stuff for you. So people will abdicate the people things to the people function. I've always pushed back quite hard to say, we're not a do for function, we're a do with function. So if you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation with a direct report, don't come and tell me to have that uncomfortable conversation. Ask me how you should have that conversation. Or at worst, say, Themba, I'd like you in the room. I'm about to discipline a person that's done this, that, and the third. And I just want to make sure that I stay within the parameters of doing the right thing and then doing the right thing for the right reasons.
I really like that. That leads me on to the question, are we training our managers to manage and our leaders to lead, or are we hoping that HR takes that function for us?
I'd like to, I think in terms of preparation, again, speaking broadly, I think a lot of managers and a lot of leaders see the HR function as a tool to be used. And it, you sort of put something in and you get something out, as opposed to a skill set to leverage in complement and symphony with what it takes to be a leader and a manager. So I mean, and it was a conversation I had this morning. I'm like, if you take the people stuff out of leadership and management, you actually just have a run-of-the-mill rank and file employee. So to outsource and abdicate that function to somebody else doesn't make sense if you are going to lead it that way.
Themba, we've got the, in north of the equator, we've got the Great Resignation, which is winding down, winding up. I'm not sure where it's going. In the Southern Hemisphere, it seems to be, and specifically Africa and South America, it seems to be the Great Migration in our industry. Our professionals are being poached. I mean, if you look at public sector and nurses, in administrative staff and teachers, they're being poached north of the border. From an IT perspective, I think we're being pillaged by everybody. What role do you see someone like yourself, a people leader or a human touch? What role do you play in either stopping this or accelerating this?
Yeah, I think, Daniel, I think we've come up with new names for demand and supply, right? Great migration and great resignation. Talent will go where talent goes. Your prime predators will always look for prime challenges. Your top sportsmen want to play for winning teams, and it's the same with talent. So to answer a question around what are we doing, or what can we do to stem the flow, right? Because nobody can stop the tide, is to make your environment sticky and attractive to talent, which means that you have to understand at a deep level the reasons why they're leaving and the reasons why they'd stay. I think when you and I last worked together, we had in the organization that we're in, we had two kinds of interviews. We had the exit interview, which everybody's familiar with. Why are you leaving? Well, it's because I'm leaving. I've told you I've resigned. But then there's the stay interview, which is the same questions you ask in an exit interview, but you frame them in the positive. So instead of asking, what are the real reasons for you leaving our beautiful company, you ask, Daniel, what are the three key reasons why you're here? What are the things that excite you about our business? What are the things that don't excite you about our business? How do you feel about going to work on Monday, the Sunday night before? And people will tell you, I'm here because of the challenging work, the cool people, the nice environment. And in a lot of instances, and then this is what surprised me, money is like fifth on the leaderboard, like in those conversations. It's career, challenge, impact, value, manager, and then money. In fact, manager probably comes up more as a number one than REM or growth does. And all of those three things, or those 4 or 5 things, are not the they don't sit in the exclusive domain of overseas in the competition, right? We have really good stuff going on in the southern tip of Africa. Yes, there's challenges. I'll give you a practical example. When I was studying, one of the lecturers who was from Germany asked if he could spend some extra time with our class to help with his thesis. And we're like, well, you're German. Like, why would you want to talk to Southern African managers about, leading practice from leadership? And he said, well, his thesis is about leading and managing in a VUCA environment. And the one thing that Germany is not is VUCA. So he can't sit down with a German manager and ask him about variable, uncertain, chaotic, a chaotic environment. A South African manager is worried about those things when he opens his eye in the morning. What's going to happen to me when I drive my car out of my garage? When I get to the office, you might get a call from one of your team members who's had an unfortunate incident based on the context we live in. I have a friend who works for a big global food and transport platform, having to explain to the rest of his colleagues what load shedding is. And the German manager on the call just couldn't wrap his mind around how you have an electricity utility that switches electricity off to create more electricity, but still charges you for it whilst it's off, right? And those are the things that we have to manage around. So there is to me, it's no surprise that our talent is sought after, because we bob and weave, float and sting in a way that's very, very different to what you have where these people are going.
If you had to advise a new crop of and I'm putting it under the HR banner because that's where I see a lot of your input. If you had to advise what everybody should be stopping or starting to do in your vocation, what would it be?
Yeah, stop choking the golden goose. We're holding on to our talent so tight that in some instances they're going, hold on, I actually have to leave before I'm suffocated or stifled. One of the crazy things, and I mean, the movement of talent happens in country as well, right? So we're a small, let me not say small, we're an intimate organization, right? So not, still sort of under 200, 250 employees. We have our talent leaving for the big GSIs. But we are also one of, we also have a really, really strong dedication to building talent. So we take in, and this is something that's been close to my heart for a long time. We take raw talent and skill it up, or have it have the talent reach its potential, right? Because they do the work, and we put them into an environment where they're now delivering value and impact. And then they, decide to go for one of the bigger global brands because now they know enough to be dangerous and now they're attractive. But nobody was nobody was looking to hire them when they were doing the Uber night shift or when they'd been in the job market for 3 years. But as soon as they have, a little bit of an edge, you get this competition for talent, right?
And do you fight for people with money? Do you counter? Is that a thing for you?
It's not. So I had a conversation like this yesterday, where somebody actually walked in and they had an offer
Mm.
sent to them by a company, and he was quite nervous about speaking to me. And I said, look, in principle, I don't believe in counter offers, because money rarely fixes all the things that you're leaving for. It might fix one, right? But if you're leaving because you don't feel you're remunerated optimally, you're not being given challenging work, and your manager is not a great person.
Yeah.
If I give you more money, you will enjoy your paycheck the first month. Second month it'll be and third month is like, wait, but hold on, like even the money is not making my manager a nicer person. And then they leave anyway. So when I have those conversations, I talk to them about giving them a fuller context for the decision that they're going to make. So I use my understanding, my experience. If they're going to a place that I've worked before, I'll talk to them about the good, bad, and the ugly in that place. And then I'll say, we don't have any under 21-year-old, or so we do. We don't have any under 20-year-old employees. And I say, you're a grown adult. I hope you have enough information to make the best decision for yourself.
So you're leaving it there with the employee. They must make their decision, and they must understand they're buying or they buy out. I've heard of teachers leaving for $1,000 a month, because they're moving, teaching Zulu, you're going to be jumping around because there's such a skill shortage. So we're talking about something different there. Do you think that the biggest challenge we are facing is the upskilling of a broader base? I mean, are we talking about ethnicity in the country? Are we still on that this horrendous past we've come from has left 2/3 of our talent pool behind? Or do you think we've got a different challenge right now in our industry specifically?
Our industry specifically, I think there's a couple of challenges, right? And we could go back to the context of history, but I'd like to take it from a context of access, our horrible Gini coefficient, and our surging youth numbers. Right.
So a kid in Ga-Rankuwa just doesn't have the same opportunities as a kid is in Alex, where the school has been sponsored by Microsoft.
Yeah, and that about sums it up, right? And it goes to the root of all of these things. I mean, we know all the Silicon Valley billionaires sort of grew up in within 500 square kilometers of each other, and mom was the librarian, and there were computers in the library, and they could go in after hours and play with the computers and sort of bring skill up. But I think we have it's that whole thing of the youth who are a key part of the solution to I think Africa's and South Africa's challenges. I mean, I think Africa as a continent will have the largest working population in the next couple of years as populations across the planet age, right? And because they've been managing, their populations with intent, may not have as many young people as we do. Now, off the base assumption that the youthful mind is like a sponge, then it becomes, what are you pouring into it? And if you're pouring into it challenge, poverty, and those things, then that's that's how it will grow. If you pour into it, digital ain't nothing but a thing. It's normal. It's not alien. You are as good as anybody else. Then your sponge swells slightly differently, right? And you do different things with it. So my view is, if we can unlock access to the biggest swath of our population that would benefit for it, that swath of the population would pull all of us up. And that's regardless of ethnicity or gender. I would almost say that if we want to get it right, let's focus on the youth wholeheartedly. In the academy programs that we run.
What's stopping us?
So I think the money's there. I think it may be will, and then chunking this elephant takes work. So it's easy to say let's solve youth unemployment. It's much more difficult to go, okay, so what are the chunks that would resolve this thing, and then going, okay, we're going to look to private sector to do this, public sector to do that, and look in that space, it's private public partner initiatives. And then there's a whole slice of this pie that's MPO and NGO driven. And I think a lot of private sector companies harvest the benefits of the stuff that all of these organizations that again do the raw talent, introduce them to Office 365, SAP, Salesforce do, and they come in and everybody's better for it.
So let's chunk this down a little bit, like you said. You're in high tech from a CRM perspective. I can see the Blue Sky logo behind you. You run youth development programs. What do you do with that? Tell me about this internship that you guys have kicked off.
So it's actually as old as the company is, right? So Blue Sky has been around for a couple of years, but when they started off, it was before Salesforce became, an understood and recognized brand. And they found Blue Ocean and they said, let's train up a couple of people in this thing that nobody has heard about, that sounds like it's pretty cool and may take off. And we'll put them to work in some niche clients that use this thing right now. Our CEO often talks about lightning striking twice. So there was that idea. And we put, they trained up 5 people, put them into a client. The client loved these people. They trained up another 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So from a percentage perspective, 48% of Blue Sky is homegrown talent that's come through what they call their academy. What the academy does is it takes people from a zero base, and I mean that respectfully. And in over the course of 6 months, they put them through, or we put them through a program that focuses on technical capability, so certifications, power skills, presentation, communication, mindfulness. And after 3 months, you have to have had 1 certification. Then the focus shifts from between month 4 and 6. It's about integrating you into the business, getting your 2nd certification. On month 6, you pass out of the academy, you get allocated a line manager, you get put onto a project, which you've probably already started working on in the segue, and you now report into mainstream Blue Sky, and so it goes. And that's just an aggressive 6-month program. Now, what usually happens is in month 3 or month 6, because we are quite our academy cohorts and Blue Sky is quite visible on social media. You begin to see this stuff coming through. First certification done, boom, and everybody's clapping hands. And then people start paying attention, and then you get the sidebar offers, or people contacting them quite directly. So you have to have done what you needed to have done in that sort of 0 to 4 month piece to make your organization the place that they want to be.
Awesome.
So when somebody comes with a 25% increase, they're going, I hear you, but I don't know if you guys braai on a Friday, or do I have access to my CEO on WhatsApp? All of those things that we do because we can do because we're small, or we're intimate, and our reach and touch. I mean, we've tried to keep our organization deliberately flat, and you know how hard that is. It's the easiest thing in the world to create long, thin pyramids. And as you climb up the ladder, it gets easier and easier, right? Here it's quite different. None of our C-suite are more than 3 levels removed from a junior developer.
That's amazing. That's really, really good. Do you think that's scalable across the industry, or is that unique to a consulting type of organization? Surely we need the layers.
Yeah, and I mean, I spent some time in quite a big layered organization before I joined Blue Sky. But there they were the active drive was to go from however many layers they had down to 6 between CEO and bottom of the pyramid. Again, I mean that respectfully. So, do we need layers? I'm not convinced. Do we need efficient and responsive systems that enable and unlock speed of delivery for client value? Then I'm 100% on board. And
Okay.
that's what we should be doing. So you'll hear an emerging conversation, and maybe it's not emerging anymore. It's actually here around responsive orgs. So
Okay.
before you used to be able to do your organizational design in a fancy tool or in PowerPoint if you didn't have access to more sophisticated org design tools. And there's actually that, insert smart art, do hierarchy, and there you go. You could even have like matrix reporting lines.
Yeah.
My view, and this is, we reorganized one of our biggest business units in 3 weeks, right? Because we're going, this thing isn't firing the way it should. We are not putting the people that need to be closest to the client where they should be. And instead of, going in and doing, big fanfare, we're doing an org restructure, sat down with the business unit manager and said, look, we can do all of these things without materially changing some of the things that would need you to go through a detailed process. Let's try it. And we did a reorg in 21 days.
Wow.
And the feedback from the employees in that business unit are, sure, it just seems a little bit easier to do what we need to do now.
Awesome. What reading could we do to catch up? What readings should every CIO or CFO do to get more in touch with the org side, in your opinion?
There's a book, but there's an even better blog done by a crew that call themselves the Corporate Rebels.
Okay.
There's there's some standard classics, HR from the outside in. That's a good read. I follow quite a few people on the socials. There's a guy that does I think his name is Gustavo Razzetti. He does fearless culture.
Wow.
But more than anything else, I mean, I think it's super important for people in this space to just be plugged in. So the book
mean?
question.
What does plugged in mean? What is plugged into you?
Plugged into me is, the what are you reading? What book are you reading right now? Would have been an awesome question maybe 4 years ago, because you'd have a hard copy of a book and you might even have had it signed. Plugged in is, what are people that are pushing the envelope in this space doing? How do you find them? And then how do you keep abreast of the things that they're doing? Brilliant. So I probably spend more time on LinkedIn clicking links than I do reading books now.
Yes.
I have a library of reference material, but if I want to, if I want to really be cutting edge, I'll have a look at, Josh Bershin's latest posts.
Awesome. I love that. Themba, how do you get out of work ruts because you're dealing with a lot of people and people are messy. It's a messy space. What is your secret to filling your cup?
So, you and I once had an Italian CEO, and I came across the Pomodoro method with him, right? Where I now work in 45-minute sprints, and then have 15 minutes open to do something else, whether it's to decompress from the difficult conversation I've just had, or to walk around the office and pick on the kids because they're listening to the wrong kind of hip hop. So that's what I do. I work in 45 minutes sprints, and I'm very, very intentional about shifting gear in those 15 minutes. So if I've had a really, really negative meeting, I use that 15 minutes to repositive. And then, I'm a lot more disciplined around the time that I'm not contracted to work. So I'm not going to go into, a long pontification on work-life balance, but I think I've become a lot better at work-life integration.
I like that. I'm hearing more and more about that work-life integration. It's not a balance. We have our phones, you've got email, you've got stuff that happens all the time, and we've got to be able to juggle these things in order to be happy, functioning dads.
Yeah, and you speak about being dads, right? So I picked up this from a parenting workshop that I went to, and then I think it was Nikki Bush who was facilitating, and she said, "Look, I know you're all here because you think you are bad parents, and you're not as great as your parents were, but your parents could play Monopoly for 4 hours with you because on the weekend their boss couldn't get a hold of them unless he came to visit." And that was a big no-no. Your boss can reach you at any time, anywhere on the planet, and sometimes even off planet, right? If you work for Mr. Branson.
Yes.
But she said, find a way to make magic in the moments that you do have. So if you take your kids to school every day, that's maybe 15 minutes times 5, and that adds up to maybe 3 hours. That's 3 hours of magic that you can use. So what do you do in those 15 minutes that your kids will remember fondly when they're old, and maybe even do with their kids? So the same way we're trying to chase the magic we had with our parents when they were available to us. How are you going to be received by your kids? So that integration piece for me is huge. That means that I don't have a dedicated lunch hour in my diary at all. I eat when I can during the day, but it gives me, I can sleep better knowing that I'm 80% not available to work after 5 o'clock. But if one of our guys phones me from Nord taxi rank and he's just been mugged and his laptop has been taken, I'm in my bakkie and I'm driving to Nord. And they know that. But if his phone can't switch on, they'll wait to call me or contact me next. And the same goes for my executive peers.
Leonard, if you had to be choosing to sit around the table with 2 industry heroes, who would it be, and what would be the first question you asked them?
Which industry? Ours.
Yeah.
Sure, I was going to go with Van Gogh and Sun Tzu, but
you can't. They're gone. They're gone. You can read their stuff and you can look at their pics.
Look, I think I'd like to sit down with somebody like Chetonyati. I've been, he's hard to miss in the landscape of captains in the space, and he's not a people management or an HR person, but the ripples that flow from him impact, right? And then the second could possibly be Bonang Mohale. I've heard him speak. I've heard him speak a couple of times. As the youth say in my company, I get his vibe. And both of them share that thing of, let's get the important stuff done. It's easy to talk about it. It's easy to admire the problem, but how do you actually get in and fix it?
I just want to say that I love the fact that you brought local leaders to the attention. And let me tell you, if I had to answer that question and we were talking around this specific topic, you would be one of them, Themba. I admire what you do there. What gives you hope for our country? As a wrap-up question for you, why do you stay? Why haven't you taken the allure of the 51st states or moved to the land of the Premier League, or why do you stay?
And it's rightly or wrongly, I think there is more to do that hasn't been done here. I did a global stint. I'm relatively well traveled. I'm deeply rooted in Sweden, and the one thing that energizes me about the continent and Southern Africa is the fact that there's so much opportunity to do new stuff that has an immediate impact.
Mr. Chakela, so that you were talking about what gives you hope for South Africa. Why do you stay? Why did you not move to Switzerland, the land of the naked people?
So Switzerland's chocolate. I'm Sweden Vikings, just for street credentials.
Street cred, yeah.
I'd say the opportunity here, Dan, and the opportunity to solve our challenges our way, and that's really what I want to do. I don't know if my career trajectory, network, or awesome people I've bumped into would have been the same if I'd packed my bags and was living in Västerås or Stockholm in Sweden. Although I've met some really awesome people in this space from that neck of the woods. But our ability to directly apply here for immediate response. We did for Youth Day, there was a debate in the office about going to visit one of the schools that we work with. It's a school for individuals with intellectual disabilities in Alex, whether we should go spend the day with them. And I was like, yeah, we spend the day with them. And what do they get? They get to meet Themba in Alex. And I don't know if that moves the dial. I'm not such a big deal. It's, I don't know how we change that. But I said, but our offices are opposite St. David's in Sandton. So I can see Alex from our balcony. So I'm pretty sure somebody in Alex can see our building. So I said to our business, I said, guys, why don't we bring these 30 kids into our office for the day instead? Because they see this Sandton skyline, but I don't know how many of them have been in a building on that skyline. And we are part of the skyline. So we brought them into our office for the day. I told everybody that could come into the office, we're going to have these kids here. We need you to be available to answer questions. Boom, boom, boom. But when they came in and we welcomed them in, I asked them two questions. I said, how many of you have seen this building before? And all of them put their hands up. Then I said, how many of you have been in this building before? None of them put their hands up. And then I asked them the third question, which was, how many of you thought that there are people that look, walk, and talk like you in these buildings? And they were like, yo, we didn't know before today. And that's the kind of and that's the kind of impact, right, that I don't think I could get if we did a similar thing, a little bit further north on a different continent.
Clearly you come from a different background to me. In our careers, we're almost the same age. I think you're a little bit younger, better looking by far. What's been the most influential resource in your career, and what was your break? Where did you break into this? Why didn't you become a hip hop artist or a basketball player? Why did you get into the formal sector?
So Daniel, I'd say the biggest thing for me, and this is scary, right? And probably not the inspirational thing that people want to hear. It was luck. A
healthy dose of luck.
It was a healthy dose of luck, and then being in the same orbit as some really, really awesome people. From the start of my working career, in 2000, I've had really great bosses. I've had really great colleagues. and for some reason things just always seemed to link up. I mean, when I got into change management, I just did it thinking, I'm not smart enough to learn this technical thing called SAP, but people have to use SAP, and I'm fairly good at people. So I started doing training and presentations before change management was a thing. In fact, the day I Yahooed change management, because Google didn't exist then, right? Or it might have been InfoSeek.
Yeah.
It popped up this day. I'm like, that's what I do. That's what I do. And I went to my boss and I said, boss, you know what? I'm a change analyst. And she goes, what does that mean? It means the stuff that I do. And she goes, cool, you can call yourself that.
Awesome.
And that's how really I cut my teeth. And I think maybe luck plus being absolutely unashamedly dedicated to staying in the people space, because that's where I think my superpower lies, and not trying to be
they've
something
spoken
else.
to you about getting into sales and getting into other areas of the business, and you've stuck true to that. Any time you think, hey man, this has been a tough path, wouldn't it have been easier to move into sales, take a big account and smash up? Because people like you, they like to buy from you.
Yeah, maybe once a week, right? So I'm actually doing a little bit of a conversation with our business. We have G&T sessions, and that's because Grant and Themba present.
Oh, okay. Not at G&T, not as a
no. But what we're going to talk about in the next one is, we love our jobs, right? And he does something very different to what I do. But there's 10% that can weigh on you. And how you keep the balance is you make sure that 10% doesn't become 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% of your job. So there's often times when I'm going, there's something easier than hearing this story, or it's been a tough month. People have opted out of the organization, and I still take those things a little bit personally, and I have to decompress. But I've also, and you know this, right? I've also managed to do all of these other things while still doing the people thing. So I ran a change and training business. I used to be the front end of the sharp end of the spear when it came to selling change management into the projects that we did. So I didn't have to go into sales to do sales. I could stay in flow and sell. I didn't have to step out of flow into a place of anxiety or boredom to do those things. But I think, and Judy always says, Themba, the problem with you is that if you win the lotto, you'd probably continue doing the work that you do. You might just choose where you do it. But I don't think I'd stop.
Okay. My last question, two for you. You had to write a book now. What would chapter 1 be about, and what would the title be?
Sure. It would have to be, I'll get to the title. It'll have to be something that speaks to my first aeroplane trip, which was 6 years old, 1982. Parents decided that we were moving from Sweden to Lesotho.
Wow.
And how things, maybe it'll be something as contrived as how it started, how it's going, and we never know where it's gonna end.
No. Oh, I like that. And then my last and a half question. Themba, where do people hook up with you that can lead for you? I know you're very open to sharing advice and ideas. Where do people get hold of you?
Probably the easiest and most ubiquitous place to find me would be on LinkedIn. I don't have a cool handle like, Agent Change 0007. I'm Themba Chakela on pretty much all my social platforms.
Not Chucky. You haven't got the Chucky domain. Have you passed that one behind you?
No. Remember, the right to call me Chucky is earned,
Okay.
not taken. But I use that as a handle. So, I do my Chucky management Mondays and my Chucky thought
Love that.
Thursdays.
So you do have
On,
a handle. You are cool, dude. You are cool.
yeah. So it will probably be LinkedIn for me. I mean,
All
in
right.
in this space, and email addresses and cell phone numbers often flow out of that conversation.
Awesome. Guys, if you are wanting to meet up with someone that's genuine and link, Themba is the man for you. He does promise art to you as well occasionally, which you don't get stuff all about, but we'll get back to that one after this. Themba.
Would it break your heart if I pulled it out now?
No, yeah, I don't even want to see it. I don't want to see it. I've overstretched my welcome with you. My very last question to you before I wrap up is, what is one question you wish that I'd asked you during our time?
If I was a balloon, what color would I be and why?
If you're a balloon, what color would you be and why, Themba?
Blue because I'm a boy, and a balloon because I'm buoyant.
You're such a chop. I can't believe we've had such a good discussion and you go with that term now with Themba Chakela, a friend and an industry, for me, an industry leader, someone who showed me how to navigate the SI really well, the big companies, never losing your spark, never losing your smile and your love for people. Thank you for giving us a little bit of time. I wish you well. At the time of recording, we're in mid-November, so it'll probably be out in January. Look back on this and just enjoy the experience, and good luck for 2023. I'm watching Blue Sky. Love what you guys are doing. Love the culture that you have created. But this is more in your space. And I hope you have an amazing Friday, dude. Enjoy the burgers.
Thank you. I'll have one on your behalf. Appreciate you having me.
It's such a pleasure. Be blessed, and I'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
Cheers.